It's my third Friday of my new relaunched protest of Stephen Goan, ADR, Ottawa, alternative dispute resolution, an entire scam industry known as, in universities, it's known as conflict resolution or conflict management, conflict studies, conflict management, all this kind of stuff. So Heather Eaton teaches that over at St. Paul, and she's just about the worst at conflict management that I know of, but she's very good at the scam, and that's what they're teaching over there, and that's what they're teaching at all the universities, if you want to ask me, as far as I can tell. Stephen Goan's report is fake. I changed this here. I changed some of my things so that maybe you can read it better. I'm always trying to go for, you know, people being able to see it better. And on this side, changed my mind, Steve. Good luck with that, chum. Also, my buddies, the freedom fighters, okay, they're there. They're there today. Do you see them? It's kind of hard when they're behind me looking through this thing, but they're over here by the courthouse at a different location near my protest, so that's fun. I was visiting with them earlier. So shout outs to the freedom fighters here. Shout out to the trucker that never left, Brian Dirksen. I was talking to him earlier. Okay. So you see I have my outfit. Also my ribbon skirt. It's hot too in this thing, man. Not gonna lie. Like, this is satin. So the base is satin, and then there's 30 ribbons, and then this humongous overlay. So not exactly cool or anything, at least it's white. Okay, so sadly I'm not ready with my article. I do have some research that I'm going to be presenting to the people who follow my protest on the philosophy of erased survivors and how that's an ontological assault on our existence. And in the case of First Nations survivors, it's a genocide. So then I'm going to be presenting that research, but I'm not ready yet. Basically what it is I wrote it while I was still in university for a course in the last semester when they administered all this racism onto me. I had 2 assignments due. One of them was my draft research proposal. And the other one was a choice that I had made from a selection of choices, and I chose to go ahead with a academic article. They often give you the choice to do a syllabus, and then if your work is any good, they just steal it, right? They add it to their own syllabi, so that's common. It's common for these fake researchers to steal the work of any of the work that's decent from students, to get stolen. That's not unusual. Or even if it's like decent and usable for them, because like they can't really use anything I do, because like I talk about decolonization as like a turn toward, or a return toward holism. And so then holistic perspectives, like the thing about holistic perspectives and holistic approaches is that they're very difficult to exploit for disproportionate benefit. And so it's really useless to these kinds of people, because they're all about exploitation and disproportionate benefit, right? Okay, so what I decided I'm gonna do instead is go through my information package. So I think that's timely, and it's been a while, and it's a good idea. And they're lucky I don't do that every time, because wait until you hear this. So first, before that, I'm just gonna do the highlights of my press release. And I have all this stuff here for interested Canadians. If you came by my protest and you wanted a copy, I have that. So if you want to hear the entire press release or read it, you could just go a couple of posts down and you'll find all that stuff. Like in my last 2 videos, I read it pretty much word for word, and also it's posted. So my first, my relaunch was on July 24th, which was a year to the day that I received an expulsion letter with nothing else. Basically, the university wrote to me in a very short email with no attachments other than a trespass notice, telling me that I'm expelled because Stephen Goan's fake report that doesn't exist found that my complaints of psychological harassment, which is a complaint I never made, is not founded. So basically, I was told that I'm being expelled because complaints that I never made are not founded. And so there's no mention of the complaints that I did make, and there's no evidence that those that my evidence was considered. There's no evidence of everybody else's evidence. There's none of that stuff is. The report has been withheld. So in my view, the report is fake, and so then that's why. That's why I'm making these statements. And so then if he wants to change my mind, he can send me the report. So they informed me in writing that 1 year ago from the launch on July 24th, they informed me in writing that an independent investigation had under their harassment and discrimination policy had concluded. And it stated that a deemed complaint. So they're not saying that I made a complaint I never made. They're saying that they're deeming my complaints as comprising psychological harassment. And I think the whole premise of psychological harassment is totally stupid. So my deemed complaint of discrimination and psychological harassment against professors and administration was not founded, and a complaint against me was founded. Nobody knows what that complaint actually is, and that I had breached confidentiality provisions, and that I was immediately removed from the PhD program and learning community. Also, a trespass notice followed. So I continue to inform Canadians that I never filed a formal complaint. I don't file formal complaints. I don't make police reports. I learned at a very young age how to handle my own business, because all that stuff is fake. Not only is it fake, but often they weaponize it against you if you do try to do that. So I'm not stupid. That's why I don't do it. University professors suggested several times that I do file a formal complaint, and I declined, citing my experience that formal complaints are frequently treated as retaliatory, and they often cite that as the reason for your expulsion or whatever other serious consequence that they administer. It's ridiculous. So it's my position that the 2 formal administrative complaints launched against me were themselves retaliatory responses to my informal complaints of conflicts of interest, racism, and other discrimination based on prohibited grounds. At no time did I complain of psychological harassment, which is a very stupid thing to complain of, neither formally nor informally. I did raise serious concerns with the investigator, Stephen Goan, regarding devaluation of my work, improper complaints in process, conflicts of interest, retaliation, intimidation, racism and discrimination on other prohibited grounds, erasure of my work and my identity as an Anishinaabe researcher and MMIWG survivor, dehumanization and genocide by erasure, and ontological assault on my existence. So then that's genocide, and that article that I have been mentioning, I did provide that to Stephen Goan during the course of his investigation. and he had that in his possession so that he could understand what I mean by an ontological assault on my existence. Also, the vice rector, Barrett, we'll get there in my report here, my information package. So he's the only one that made a complaint of psychological harassment, and he did so like in a complaint that was withheld from me, it appears, until like after the first investigator had removed themselves from the investigation, and then they hired a second investigator, and then it wasn't until sometime in April that Stephen Goan gave me this complaint that was withheld. The complaint is on the behalf of someone else, which is also inappropriate. And it wasn't disclosed to me until many weeks after the process had officially begun, and then it was folded into the investigation. Stephen Goan himself admitted that that's not proper process, and he said that he wouldn't treat it as a separate complaint, but that's not what happened, obviously. I've repeatedly requested a copy of the full investigative report, and I've never received it. So the July 24th, 2025 letter provided a summary of that. Well, not even, it's like 2 lines. It's not a summary of this report, but it didn't provide the full report containing the detailed findings, the evidence considered, or the reasoning. So it's ridiculous that they think that they can expel an MMIWG survivor. MMIWG, again, is missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. I'm a survivor. And everybody knows that because I tell them everywhere I go. And everybody at St. Paul University knew that, but they erased me. And it's ridiculous. There's a lot of people going by and giving me like positive gestures, including lawyers. So, given the severity of the outcome, it's ridiculous that they think that they can withhold, the reasoning and the evidence and the findings and all this kind of thing. It's ridiculous. Permanent expulsion from my doctoral program and an indefinite ban from campus. To administer those types of consequences after, having erased me for 2 years straight. And in my view, recruited me into that program for the purpose of erasing me and trying to genocide me. I think that, greater transparency is warranted here, and that's a no-brainer. These are common sense, statements that I'm making. A First Nation student and survivor facing such consequences should be able to understand in concrete detail the basis on which those decisions were made. The continual refusal to release the report leaves me without that information. And also, after about 3 weeks into my protest outside Stephen Goan's office, which is just a few blocks that way, last year, Ottawa Police Detective Albert Stewart contacted me, and he spammed my phone like 3 times until I picked it up. And then when I picked it up and he told me who he was, I told him to send me an email. I don't want to talk to these men with fake jobs on the phone. And not only that, but for legal reasons, all of these exchanges of information need to be properly documented. So then, in a formal email dated August 27th, 2025, he advised me that he had reviewed a report submitted by Stephen Goan, and that, while my right to protest was recognized, the nature and persistence of my actions were approaching the threshold of criminal harassment because they allegedly caused another person to reasonably fear for their safety. So he issued a formal warning that a continued behavior of that nature could result in further police involvement, including potential charges, and that's really poor, Albert Stewart, and the entire OPS should be ashamed and appalled. I've conducted dozens of peaceful protests in Ottawa on a range of issues, and I've clearly and repeatedly stated that I oppose violence. I have no history of criminality or violence, and there's no evidence that I pose a risk to anyone's safety. St. Paul University, which is affiliated with the University of Ottawa, where Stephen Goan holds a part-time faculty appointment, and the Ottawa Police Service, publicly commit to fairness, equity, diversity, inclusion, addressing institutional and systemic racism, and showing empathy and consideration for the experiences of First Nations affected by the MMIWG genocide. And so the decision to impose the most severe sanctions available on an Anishinaabe PhD student who raised concerns about racism, erasure, and related issues while refusing to provide the full investigative report, together with subsequent police report and the resulting warning, constituted an effort to intimidate and erase an Anishinaabe PhD student and MMIWG survivor, and to silence my self-advocacy because the protest was succeeding in raising public awareness about these issues. So I'm here again to protest the hypocrisy and the lack of transparency, also misconduct, procedural impropriety, on and on. So I'm asking St. Paul University and the investigator to release the full investigative report so that its process and conclusions can be examined. Of course, they're not going to give it to me because they know I'm going to show all you guys. I invite interested Canadians to support the simple principle that when a university imposes the most serious sanctions available against a student, the student should be given the detailed record upon which those sanctions rest. Pretty simple stuff, as I said many times. It's a beautiful day in Ottawa. I heard it was going to be killer hot. It's like regular hot. I mean, pretty warm. But I heard it was going to be killer. So we'll see. It's already afternoon. It's already 1:30. So if it was going to be killer hot, it'd be in between now and maybe 3. I have Oreo cookie ice cap. So pretty happy. Yum. Okay, let's get into it. So my YouTube channel, oh good, these fell out. It's a good time to show it. So my YouTube channel is called Migize Media. Dana Hickey. That's the YouTube icon at Migize Media 25. That's my YouTube. It's a really awesome channel. There's 2 playlists on there that are public. The latest one has to do with Statistics Canada and their fake research. That's really just for the information and training of First Nations youth. I mean, I know that I realize other people are interested, but I'm not going to go on about that right now. And the other one that was created before that, it contains this information and like all of the videos. So like if you look here on the first page, okay, and then as I've said, the first page is orange because I was having difficulty managing my information packages and distributing them to interested Canadians while wearing my signs. Like my signs are wearable, right? While wearing my signs and carrying a bag and holding a phone and all these things. And so that's why the first page is a different color for me. And so then if you, on the subsequent pages, there's like, you know, there's information and then there's a link and a QR code which takes you to the same link. And that would be the next video in that playlist. And then it continues, right? The next video, so on. So if you were to go to that playlist on at Migize Media 25, Migize is M-I-G-I-Z-I, it means eagle in Anishinaabe Moan. So if you were to go there, the very first video takes you through all this, the same as I'm going to do right now. And then the next video would be the first link in this package. The next video after that is the next video, like the next batch of information, and so on and so on. If you're interested, I don't know how long that playlist is altogether, but it's got to be lengthy. And if you're interested to see the evidence that I meticulously documented over the course of these events, you could go to that playlist and see that. Okay, so it's called They Are Accountable. See, this is the thing. So this stuff that they did to me is very common, and it's happening all the time, especially in grad school, especially at the PhD level. And you know, they do it like with impunity, and they've gotten so used to getting away with it that they don't even care to pretend as if their ethics matter, or in many cases as if like laws even matter, right? And not only do they not care, but they've developed a method where they like really put it in your face, and that's to maximize the dehumanization, right? So they're always trying to maximize that dehumanization. It's a method that genociders use to make you lose your mind. So that, because as soon as you lose your mind, the cops are going to pick you up, you see, and you're done. Like, this is why I often tell people, you know what, rule number one, no matter what happens, do not lose your mind. So this is like addressed to St. Paul University students, and it's going to stay that way because I'll be back at the university for a back to school protest coming up here soon. Back to school is around the corner. And that's when I'll be doing my duty to inform the new students about what's really going on in there. And really, I mean across Canada. This is not unique to St. Paul. So the information package details my experience of systemic racism, erasure, and sabotage within the university aimed at preventing my PhD completion. As an Anishinaabe survivor and advocate, I have faced targeted discrimination, including arbitrary grading, fabricated complaints, and administrative retaliation, and also intimidation by persons such as Barrett. This document provides a timeline and evidence of these events, urging you to recognize the monitoring of your social media and the potential for similar treatment. Stay informed and vigilant, I warn them. So the timeline starts in 2022 when I publicly came out as an MMIWG survivor. So the main event in that context, it happened in the late 90s when I was confined for an unknown number of days in a small apartment in East Vancouver where I was tortured, drugged, raped, bitten, beaten by separate rape gangs on separate occasions. I escaped my confinement by outsmarting my captors. I did not report the event to the Vancouver police, nor did I attend at the hospital because I believed that if I did, I would be subjected to more abuse, similar to what is currently happening to women in Europe, for example. Many MMIWG survivors have reported being mistreated in hospital and raped again by police officers, okay? When they came forward to report what happened to them. MMIWG survivors are not believed, and Canadians are trained to erase them to this very day. I disclosed this information publicly while employed at the Native Women's Association of Canada, and later that year, when I began working at the Assembly of First Nations, I told National Chief Roseanne Archibald about it directly to her face, and I was ignored by everyone at NWAC and the AFN. My position at NWAC ended in September of 2022, and my position at the AFN ended in April of 2023. In the summer of 2022, Dr. Aurélie Lacassagne, who I've known for 15 years, and who was on my master's committee, my master's work was done in 2019, she accepted the position of Dean of Faculties of Human Sciences and Philosophy at St. Paul University, and shortly after she moved to Ottawa, she invited me to a meeting at which she offered to supervise my PhD work. Okay, so why would she offer? She knows me. Why would she offer to supervise my PhD work if she wasn't willing to advocate for me in the instance of racism? Okay, and like Aurélie Lacassagne was completely like, she would not respond to emails, and she was she at that time, by the time that they had started administering, like, you know, the arbitrary grading and so on that I'm saying, that was in the fall, the beginning of the new year, the new school year of 2024. And into the winter 2025, and by then they had moved her over to Université de Hearst as rectrice. So, you know, because she couldn't be in a position of dean of the faculty while they were, you know, going to administer that kind of racism onto me. Racism and genocide. But she remained my supervisor while she was rectrice, and she didn't remove herself until quite a while after. And like, there's so many emails asking for her help that she ignored because she can't help, because she's controlled. And she guzzles the indignities, as I often say, and she does what she has to do to keep her fake job, as I often say. And she's a genocider. And she set me up. So we discussed beginning the work in the winter of 2023. However, that was not approved, which is why I took a position at the AFN. I prepared a research proposal on Anishinaabe ontologies of reality construction. And my application to the PhD program was accepted, and I started classes in the fall of 2023. So I enrolled in Social Innovation Issues and Theories with Dr. Amanda Wilson. My very first course was with Dr. Amanda Wilson, and my very last course, when she erased the core of my research and rewrote some garbage and instead, which is common, and they've done that to many Indigenous PhD students in the past. The reason that Amanda Wilson was chosen to be the person who does that in the winter semester is because Amanda Wilson has tenure. And even if somehow I managed to proceed with a complaint that was successful, nothing would happen to a tenured professor. And this is another common method. Also, I took, what's it called? It was a conflict studies course with Dr. Heather Eaton, who has a significant role in all this as well. And by this time, I had been using social media to document my advocacy for erased genocide survivors, as well as my activism on many other aspects of genocide of First Nations, still occurring in Canada for over a year by that time. After attending classes and meeting with my supervisor, I realized everyone was going to pretend as if they don't know what's going on my social media. And that's complete garbage. Like, so the students need to know, like, they're stalking you on social media. And if you step out of line, you're gonna find out what happens. So for them to pretend as if they don't know what's going on, I mean, they do that, like, because a lot of people on social media, like, if they start getting attention, that's enough for them. That's sort of what they're looking for, which is not really why I do this. And so that's what's different about me and some other people. You know, sometimes they'll use a method where they give you that attention, and then they pull you into the toxicity where you have to start administering it yourself. You have to guzzle the indignities. You have to sell your soul, and you have to genocide your own people in order to, like, stay chummy with them, you know, like, to stay in it. And so then none of those things are acceptable to me. And not only that, but Chris Mackey, who has a role in all of this, all the way into the fall of 2024, when I started the first class with them, they pretended as if they didn't know who I was. Like, as if they had never discussed my research in a department meeting or anything. And, like, I mean, my master's research is, like, phenomenally successful, if you want to ask me. It's ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous. I mean, more people know who I am than any of these people. So this pretending persisted until the winter of 2025. After realizing that I am an MMIWG survivor doing very bold advocacy online, and some of the most socially innovative work happening in Canada will be erased by everyone at SPU, I began to document the experience right away, and I accumulated a ton of evidence between then and now. So in the fall of 2024, so, like, that's a whole, like, I did a whole year of coursework, and now we're at the fall of the second year of coursework. Not only that, but you know what, someone with my experience, like, I mean, you should see my CV. I have all kinds of research experience, high level stuff. And people with my kind of research are often we don't have to do coursework because we're so, like, it's really, it's like our experience is advanced, and the coursework starts at a lower level than that. And so then usually they would give someone like me an expedited sort of track in their PhD, but of course that didn't happen in my circumstance. So it's important for students to know that their social media is being monitored by university staff, administration, and faculty as a regular practice, and they pretend that they don't know anything about you. For example, on my first day of class with Chris Mackey, they pretended they didn't know who I am. Such a thing is ridiculous, as I am an internationally known Anishinaabe student, scholar, and advocate. Dr. Mackey even expected the class to believe that they had not learned who I am at faculty and department meetings, which is also absurd. These people are trained in this type of erasure, and this occurs often. It is my view that Dr. Mackey was arbitrarily devaluing my work. It is also my view that the department and likely the faculty and administration had decided to implement that violence against me during the 2024 to 2025 academic term, after their usual strategies had no effect on me for the entirety of 2023 to 2024. I'd seen it all before. I'd seen it all coming a million miles away. That's why I'm training the youth, so that you can also be at a position of advantage instead of, having no idea about any of this. And like thinking that these people are actually like ethical researchers, in academics, which they're not. So it's also my view that Aurélie Lacassagne took a leave of absence from SPU to be rectrice at Université de Hearst to avoid being dean of the faculty while the violence I described next was administered. It is my view that Dr. Mackey arbitrarily devalued my work and gave me a grade that is much lower than all the grades I've ever received during my entire grad career, including my master's. I also think that it is likely that others in class, some of whom had only been in the country for a few years and are still learning English, likely scored a higher grade. There's no way to know because they had, where you go to see your grades, they had removed anybody else. You can't compare your grades. You can't know what other people scored, and there's no way to compare. There's no comparison whatsoever. And not only that, but no one in the department was able to produce a grading methodology, which I requested several times. I have been studying social sciences and philosophy for my entire life. No one in the School of Social Innovation can produce a grading methodology, which I asked for several times, and I was blocked from accessing information about what grades were assigned to the others in the class for the purposes of comparison. It is also my view that Canadian universities are using a diversity, equity, and inclusion DEI framework as a license to discriminate against any student they target for discrimination. I did not complain about this anti-First Nations racism until the winter of 2025. Instead, I posted about it on my social media. This strategy was deliberate, and it demonstrates the absurdity of Dr. Mackey and everyone else, pretending that they don't know what is on my social media, as it is a response to the erasure. It is in my second class with Amanda Wilson. Wilson used the grading of the first assignment to literally erase the core of my research, which I had been talking about since the first course. So this is the last course of 2 years of coursework. And I had been talking about this core to my research since the very first course with Amanda Wilson. So she erased the core of my research that I have been sharing with all student colleagues and professors since my first day of classes, also with Dr. Wilson. Dr. Wilson literally rewrote the core of my research, stripping it of relevance to Anishinaabe communities and erasing 2 years of work, valued at over $10,000 by that point. Dr. Wilson is an admitted ideological abolitionist and not First Nations or Indigenous. I complained of racism in writing by email, that's an informal complaint. Please view the links for an example of my complaints and questions, and of the gaslighting, dismissal, and dehumanization I got back from the acting chair of the department, Simon Tremblay-Pepin. So that's where you would go to see the first whack of evidence that I have for people to look at. I have a lot more evidence. Basically, they need to know that everything they ever said to me has been documented, and not all of that is being made public yet. This type of they also gave me, they're so dumb. As I often say, this kind of trying to kill people causes brain damage, right? And so it renders them incapable thinkers after a while. And that combined with like their success at getting away with all this kind of stuff, and you know, believing that that there is no accountability, which isn't the case, because if they weren't accountable, I wouldn't be out here and I wouldn't be on social media doing this. They are accountable. That's not real, which is one of my main points. Yeah, so they also gave me a big, huge, fat binder of evidence. They just handed it to me. I couldn't believe it. Still to this day, I can't believe how dumb. Gigantic binder of evidence. So anyway, this type of anti-First Nations racism is typical and well documented in the academic literature. Everyone at St. Paul University treated me as if my experience in education doesn't even exist. Not like I really should post my my CV, my curriculum vitae, they call it, basically a fancy resume, so you can see, like, maybe some of my new followers don't know my experience, but it's extensive. Not only were they re-erasing me as an erased survivor of horrific genocidal violence and an advocate for erased survivors, but they also erased my entire career and all of my accomplishments. I am 47 years old at the time. I'm 48 now. And I have been in and out of academia for 20 years. I have tons of experience with anti-First Nations racism in academia that results from my previous roles in Indigenous student services and in student government. I've been involved with other First Nations students who navigated the exact same series of events that I describe in this information package. For the above reasons, I was not surprised that I was targeted for this violence, but I was surprised that my supervisor, Aurélie Lacassagne, did not make herself available to meet or discuss, and she did not advocate for me. Why would Lacassagne pitch to me the idea that she supervised my PhD at SPU if she was not willing to advocate for me in the event of anti-First Nations racism, which is rampant? In my view, it is because no one at St. Paul intended on allowing me to get a PhD at any time. And instead, they worked together to target me for this racism and genocide. It is my view that Aurélie Lacassagne set me up for this. My research experience far exceeds any of my student colleagues. And instead of offering me an expedited track that forgoes the redundant coursework, training that only the other students need, they extracted almost $15,000 just in tuition for 2 semesters of courses. They waited until the last semester of coursework to sabotage my research, and they also tried to ruin my academic reputation, as you will see in the following pages. Students should know that if the department has a problem with the core of your research, they should be working with you on it long before the last semester of coursework, not after you've been working on it for 4 semesters before that, effectively erasing 2 years of work. Common sense stuff, friends. So February 22nd, 2025. The department tried other strategies to get me to accept the dehumanization associated with erasing my research. Many First Nations PhDs over the last 30 to 40 years decided to accept this same dehumanization in exchange for a PhD. They even took fake research into First Nations communities, and they exploited the people for fake research. On February 22nd, 2025, Dr. Wilson sent a class an email letting us know that our class would be in the classroom building instead of where we had met on every occasion before that, which is, they call the atelier, and it's a workshop space for the department. When I arrived at class in the classroom building for the very first time of any of our classes ever, there was a strange man also present who Wilson introduced as an observer. It turned out to be Vice Rector, similar to a Vice President, Administration and Research, Jean-Marc Barrett. So there's a picture of him right there, so that students can see, try to, see these people in the halls. Dr. Wilson gave the class instructions to respond to her last feedback for consideration of the grade of the second assignment. And that was a problem for me because I had already responded to that feedback in writing and in a meeting with Wilson on February 10th, 2025, which is documented, Amanda. I had already rejected the erasure of the core of my research on the basis of racism. I raised my concerns and asked how I am to proceed now that I'm addressed to that feedback twice already. evidently, they expected me to change my position and accept the erasure and dehumanization. Wilson said she would talk to me after class. I wrote to the chair and to my supervisor to let them know what just happened, and I sent that email at 10:12 a.m. So basically, she gave us the same instruction that I had already told her is a problem twice. And then I got on my phone and I sent that email that I just mentioned at 10:25 while I was still in the class. So, and you can go and see that stuff in my playlist. So February 24th at 10:17 a.m. Okay, so now we're down to the minute here. 5 minutes later at 10:17, I was notified by email. So an email arrived in my box and it's timestamped 10:17. Again, my email went out at 10:12, okay? I was notified about a formal complaint filed against me that turned out to be dated February 21st. So that was, so we're at the 24th. The complaint was dated the 21st. And they waited to see how I would respond to Amanda's, like, just restating the same thing that I already said I had trouble, like I have a problem with it. I can't, like, how do I proceed when I have these issues? I already said that twice. So they brought me to class on the 24th in front of everybody else, did the same thing again. And then after I sent an email protesting what just happened and asking again, how do I proceed? You can see that in the evidence of the link. That's when they sent me this complaint that was filed several days earlier. And like I had said earlier, the reason that Dr. Barrett was in that class observing was to intimidate me, and that's called intimidation, and it's not ethical. So one of the written documents in the complaint was from Dr. Heather Eaton. That's her. In her capacity as the full-time professor in the full-time professors union, whatever her capacity was at the time, on behalf, and so her complaint is on behalf of several other faculty. I had a course with Dr. Eaton, as I mentioned, and everything went fine. So it's not like Dr. Eaton had never met me. I took an entire course with Dr. Eaton and I got an A. I got a high grade. But Dr. Eaton didn't bother to contact me to understand my perspective before she filed this complaint on behalf of all these other people. So that's improper. And there's another complaint from Amanda Wilson. So Amanda Wilson is the only person who ever filed a complaint on behalf of themselves in this entire thing. So only Dr. Wilson's complaint was written out, and it doesn't accuse me of anything other than standing up for myself against predictable racism. The other complaints were not provided to me in writing. They are not complaints accusing me of any specific misconduct, and they were submitted via short email written by Heather Eaton on behalf of others, including Dr. Wilson, Dr. Mackey, Dr. Tremblay-Pepin, and Professor Annie Morissette. I had previously taken Dr. Eaton's course, Theories of Conflict, and Dr. Eaton did not contact me to hear my perspective before she filed her improper complaint. So then you can go to the links to see that, to see that evidence that I put up there. So on February 24th, 10:45 a.m., Dr. Eaton's email suggested that I should not be around these professors. Why didn't they tell me that on February 21st? And so at the break in the class, I left campus. I did not return to class, and my erasure from this class was demonstrated to the other students in the class that day. So this is one of my main points, is that they're teaching students, and many of these students are like international students or foreign students, and so they're teaching them how to erase First Nations. That's what they're doing in university. Okay, and so that's another reason why I do this self-advocacy, is they need to understand that's not real, chums. So what's going to happen, like, Indians don't guzzle indignities so that you guys can live in a delusional fantasy. Okay, so it's not real, and when you go out there into the world here in Canada and you try to administer that, you're going to have us telling you no, right? And this is really important for the men from these other countries, because a lot of the people that are standing up for themselves to tell you no are going to be First Nations women, okay? And that's not real, and you're going to learn it from us. So before I left, I asked the strange man who turned out to be the Vice Rector of Administration and Research, Barrett, Jean-Marc, who he is, and he handed me his card. It is my view that Jean-Marc Barrett attended Dr. Wilson's class to intimidate me into accepting the dehumaniation and the erasure of my research in 2 years of work, and the next day I wrote him an email asking for the official reason for why he was present. Barrett never responded. It is my view that this complaint is in retaliation for my complaints of racism, and it is also my view that all individuals named planned that violence that occurred on February 24th and sometime before February 21st, 2025, which is the date on the complaint that I received at 10:17 a.m. So there's more evidence. You can go to these links to see more evidence. It is common to dismiss, dehumanize, and gaslight students who complain of discrimination and instead insist that the student files a formal complaint with the administration if they want anything to be done about it. This is a well-known setup, and the administration weaponizes these processes against students. And they're always doing it to themselves, like each other or whatever, as well, as I often say. It is also common for staff and faculty to weaponize their internal policies and administration processes against each other, so I do say that. I refused to file a formal report. However, several people acted as if I had filed a formal report, including Carol Audette, and the second investigator hired as a result of the complaint against me, a lawyer called Stephen Goan. If you view the example below, you will see that Carol Audette tried to trap me into a formal complaint by stating that one of my emails will be treated as a formal complaint. Ridiculous. Students should know that formal complaints need to be proper. Okay? Not willy-nilly or whatever people decide, or you said something and so that's going to be deemed a formal complaint. No. They need to be written, they need to be specific, and they need to be submitted according to a regulated process that isn't totally corrupt and unethical. Moreover, Dr. Simon Tremblay-Pepin, who was in clear conflict of interest after having been named in a complaint dated February 21st, 2025, he was assigned to direct the rest of my coursework. I contested every grade I received from Dr. Tremblay-Pepin on the basis that my work is being arbitrarily devalued. I complained about the conflict of interest several times, and I made several more complaints of racism against Dr. Tremblay-Pepin, all by email. Like, it had to be 5 or 6. That's him. And you can see some of the evidence I put up. March 5th. It is my view that the university strategy to erase me included the 1-year leave of absence that Orly Lacassan took during this time to move to Hearst for 1 year. She has since resigned from the position of rectrice at the Université de Hearst, and her current position at St. Paul was unknown at the time. I think she's teaching now. I haven't looked in a while. While at Université de Hearst in the role of rectrice, Orly Lacassan remained my supervisor, and on March 5th, 2025, I was notified by the Vice Rector of Academics, again Barrett, and Research, Academics and Research, that Dr. Orly Lacassan will not continue as my supervisor. So you'll see that. Here's some other documentation of actions of Orly Lacassan, who did not advocate for me, who set me up for this sabotage, and who is one of the worst humans that I know personally. More evidence. Orly Lacassan promotes the life stories of, so while she was at Université de Hearst, she was promoting the life stories of other students while erasing an MMIWG survivor that she's the supervisor. And they do that stuff on purpose. That's that right in your face stuff to maximize the dehumanization, and it's a method of genocide. March 2nd, I was connected with Orly Lacassan on Facebook as well as on LinkedIn for over a decade until she blocked me on March 2nd, 2025. After disputing every grade that Dr. Simon Tremblay-Pepin gave me while in a clear conflict of interest, Tremblay-Pepin informed me that he will no longer respond to any further allegations of racism. He just said, I'm not going to respond to this anymore after the 6th time or something, because when they have nothing but gaslighting in response, and they're not properly addressing these complaints, these informal complaints, as they are ethically bound to do and obligated to do. This is what happens. On April 8th, 2025, I was informed that the first external investigator, hired by the university as a result of their complaint against me, with whom I had already met, removed themselves from the matter. Okay, so that's April 8th. I have evidence that this first investigator was not external to the university. I've never named that person. I don't think I'm going to until I have a reason, I guess. Okay, so I was also informed that another investigator will be appointed. And the reason that happened is because that first investigator was just sent to intimidate me. And so then every interaction I had with that person is documented, friends, okay? And at the end, she's like, so you're not gonna stop complaining online? You're not gonna stop posting, she said at the end? I'm like, no. That's when she stepped down because she failed. And that's when they hired Goan. Okay, so now there's like, this is in a box because it's like separate, and it's almost like an interlude, or it's like one of their side quests. And that side quest was an attempt to ruin my academic reputation. So all of that is in the boxes, and then we move back to like the main complaint that they filed against me, which has no box. Is try to keep so that you can follow along, because it gets complicated, hey? Okay, so this is the second false and fabricated allegations as part of the secondary retaliatory process administered onto me. So on May 1st, I was notified that Dr. Tremblay-Pepin filed a formal allegation of academic fraud against me. The allegations are false. The errors he refers to were easily corrected, and my work is based on authentic sources and 2 years of work that cost many thousands of dollars in tuition. Tremblay-Pepin also fabricated evidence. See, they're telling me that I fabricated my sources in my work, which I didn't do, and the evidence that he used for that, he fabricated himself. He took things off the internet and he put them all together, and he said this is what she plagiarized. He tried to say this is what she plagiarized when he fabricated all of that himself. So and as I've often said, they're constantly projecting what they do onto their targets. So, as I said, Tremblay-Pepin fabricated the evidence, and he submitted fake evidence in his formal allegations against me. So you can read the research proposal that was the subject of these retaliatory allegations made by Tremblay-Pepin, and you can verify the authenticity of my sources yourself by going to this link. So that's a link to my ResearchGate. So my draft research proposal, that I had done for the purposes of trying to proceed in that program. So if I were to do it again, there'd be some things that would be different. Like, for example, there wouldn't be very much observance of this DEI stuff, because that's a scam, for example. The reason that appears in there is because I was trying to proceed in their program. There's other aspects of it, like they have these thematic sort of, I forget what they call them, but they have like 4 thematic sort of pillars, and you're supposed to like try to tailor your work toward one of these. I forget what it is, but I mean, I did choose one, and that's included, but I would never include that if I had not been trying to proceed in their program. But anyway, a lot of my, I do encourage people to read it, because I am still trying to do authentic Anishinaabe research, philosophical inquiry on ontology of reality construction. And so a lot of it is real. And, and I would keep a lot of what's in there. So just to put that caveat there for you if you want to go read that stuff. So May 25th, the second administrative process put onto me in retaliation for complaints of racism also proceeded in an improper and unethical manner, which is not surprising. See the link for unethical and improper actions by administrators. So there's another link for you to go look. On May 15th, I met with the Academic Integrity Committee investigating false allegations of academic fraud. And on May 15th, I presented each with a copy of my evidence in a formal written response. I documented the meeting with the committee, and that is here for you to see. It was the shortest meeting I've ever witnessed for such a serious allegation, less than 20 minutes. So that entire meeting is documented and available for you to, like, it's information you can consume. On May 29th, I posted a video defending my research against false allegations of academic fraud made using fabricated evidence. And so then that video is here, my defense. That video is right here. June 2nd, I presented conclusive evidence that demonstrates that my sources exist and they are authentic. Several of them came from the syllabi of my courses. One of them is from my first class with Amanda Wilson all the way back in 2023 in the fall, which demonstrates that the writing is based on 2 years of work. Despite this, the Unethical Academic Integrity Committee ignored the easily verifiable, authentic sources as if they do not exist. And they conspired with the Director of Research and Ethics, Mohammed Kauchi, who also engaged in misconduct. Okay, let's see. They conspired with Mohammed Kauchi to add an additional false allegation at this improper stage of the process in order to impose onto me the sanction associated with additional false and improper allegation. I was given no opportunity to defend against the second false and improper allegation. So what happened is I met with the committee, and then after that they gave me their false findings, and in those false findings was another allegation. So it's improper to like, in their findings there appears another allegation that I have no opportunity to respond to, right? So that's improper. So, like, I mean, procedurally, that's not okay. That's improper process, and that's unethical, and all this stuff is trash. So the Unethical Academic Integrity Committee decided that I had violated academic integrity regulations and recommended the sanctions. The unethical members of this committee are Mikhail Sagan, Aliyah Daukri, and Guillaume Durand, who conspired with Mohammed Kauchi on, and they're pictured here. So on June 2nd, I wrote to these people named responsible for reviewing the decision of this unethical committee, and I think that's what I have to show you. So there's Mikhail, that's Aliyah, and that's Guillaume, and then that's probably the letter that I'm referring to. So basically what they were saying, like, okay, so Mohammed Kauchi is the director of ethics, okay? And so then, or was. So what happened is with them, those four people, I don't know, I don't have a picture of Mohammed, but those four people got together to add that second allegation at the improper stage after, you know, that where I would have no opportunity to respond. And the allegation was something like, because it was a PhD proposal, that a more serious sanction is warranted. And, like, see, this is the thing though, it, like, not only is that in an improper, like, not only are, like, my sources are not fabricated, my sources are authentic first, and I proved it, easy to show, okay, and you can see it in my evidence. Second, this is at an improper stage that they put that additional, you know, allegation and sanction onto me. And third, what I had submitted was a draft, and it was for a course, it was the last semester of the second year of coursework, and it was a draft just for the course, and the actual real proposal would have been done in the summertime. The summer, like, because in grad school you have to register every academic semester, including summers. And the actual proposal that they're referring to would have been done in the summer, not in the fall. So, like, the assignment that they're referring to was an assignment that I had very short time to put together, although it was the product of 2 years of work by that time. But, you know, I would have further developed it in the summer and produced the final result in you know, by the fall, which was how that PhD course was developed by these people, and they know that very well. So all these things are totally improper, fabricated lies, and it's just it's horrendous. I mean, it's just, and, you know, it's like blatant, and it's really terrible. Like beyond unethical. Okay, so on June 11th, I was notified that as a result of my letter of June 2nd, the Executive Committee of the Faculty of Canon Law, who do not have proper jurisdiction in these matters, reviewed the recommendation of the Unethical Academic Integrity Committee. The Executive Committee of the Faculty of Canon Law also ignored the evidence as if it does not exist. They made the incorrect determination that false allegations are justified, and they imposed a very serious sanctions onto me based on lies and fake evidence fabricated by Simon Tremblay-Pepin, Dr. Miguel Seguin, Alia Dakri, and Guillaume Durand, and Mohamed Gauchi. So, you know, like, I would not be accusing those four people of fabricating anything if they hadn't added that allegation at the improper stage. So, I mean, they're just making the... They just, like, I mean, but now they're implicated, and that's it. So the university ignored my written request for the names of the Executive Committee of Faculty of Canon Law. According to the information available at the website at the time, the unethical people that comprise that Executive Committee of the Faculty of Canon Law are Chad Glendinning, Valère Nakoya Mumbandi, sorry for my pronunciation, and Michel Andreas Nobel. These are the people that seem to be the implicated persons from the Faculty of Canon Law involved in this misconduct. On June 24th, I filed an appeal of the false determinations of the Unethical Academic Integrity Committee and the Executive Committee of the Faculty of Canon Law. There was no response to my appeal at any time whatsoever. The Senate at St. Paul University completely ignored my appeal as if it didn't exist. They just didn't respond. And they're used to getting away with that. So my next entry is from July 4th. And so then by this time, like, I had already paid tuition for the summer term, right? And so then, I hadn't heard from anyone from the department about what is expected in the summer term. And everybody ignored me from the Department of Social Innovation. Everybody ignored me at the Senate. I never got any response because they all knew they were going to expel me. They knew that back in February, okay? So they figured there's no point to engage with this person. There's no point to do any work. They don't work, if you don't know. And you know, we don't have to do anything because she'll be expelled anyway, which is, of course, what happened. So on July 4th, 2025, I wrote to the members of the Senate of St. Paul University to ensure that they are notified that my appeal is being ignored and erased as if it doesn't exist. There was no response. There are more than 24 unethical staff and faculty involved in the racist pylon administered onto me by St. Paul, a fake university and dangerous cult. Information about the members of the Senate at the time of these events indicate the members are, what does MGR stand for again? Anyway, Marcel Damphouse, Patrick Leroux, the president, Jean-Marc Barrette, Carol Audette, Chad Glendinning, who was on that committee from Canon Law, Christian Dion, who took over as Dean of the Faculty of Philosophy and Human Sciences, and from whom I have many emails, Michel Andreos, who is very close with Aurélie Lacassagne, too close if you want to ask me, John Rankin, Richard Feist, Amanda Wilson, Christian Bellume, Mikhail Seguin, again from that committee, Mark Slater, or Slatterd, I don't know, Carl Hefty, Michael Nobel, Matthew McLennan, Cynthia Bilodeau, Sarah Johnson, Jeremy LeBlanc, Alain Saint-Amand, and Andre Bouchamin. Please see Appendix 1 to this information package for more information about these unethical members of the Senate. And let me see if I have, yeah, So here's that too. The last page of my information package for students shows these people. It's my appendix. Yeah, appendix 1. So I just showed you that. So now we're going back to the first case. So here that box is finished, and we're going back to the first complaint now that whole trying to ruin my academic reputation thing is over. I'm finished showing you the evidence on that. We'll move on to the next part. Okay, so back to the first administrative process launched against me in retaliation for my complaints of racism and fake investigation led by unethical lawyer and fake investigator Stephen Goan. So I met with lawyer Stephen Goan and his mysterious associate Kelly, who was never properly identified and who in my view probably has a conflict of interest, which is why information about Kelly's identity is withheld to this day to conceal her or to hide her conflicts of interest. That's my view. June 8th, I wrote to Mr. Goan with my response to the interview notes, and he and his mysterious associate Kelly produced. Those notes do not accurately capture the full scope of my statements or the evidence of systemic racism and erasure, and they include misrepresentations. They omit critical details, including the question I put to Goan and to Kelly at the end of the meeting. And then you can please go to these links to see my response to Mr. Goan. So I have some evidence to present to Canadians about that. It's there. Also on June 8th, I documented the meeting with Mr. Goan and his mysterious unidentified associate Kelly. And that documentation is kept in my files. On June 8th, I published a video presentation going over the notes of the meeting as provided by Mr. Goan and Kelly, as well as my markups to those notes. Please use the link to view that video if you're interested. June 10th. That was my birthday. On June 10th, I turned 47, 2025. I wrote to Mr. Goan regarding my concerns about omitting the critical question I posed to him at the end of the meeting, as well as another false and improper complaint added to this investigation by Jean-Marc Barrette dated February 13th, 2025. This complaint was not included in the original complaint dated February 21st, 2025, of which I was notified on February 24th, 2025. And it was not disclosed to me by the first investigator that I met with, who later removed themselves from the matter. I was notified by about Dr. Barrette's false and improper complaint by Mr. Goan on April 16th, 2025. Please see the links to read that correspondence. June 10th, again, I published a video presentation going over the timeline of these outrageously unethical and improper events. The video demonstrates the conspiracy to use retaliatory administrative processes to sabotage my research, ruin my academic reputation, extract thousands of dollars from me, and discriminate against me, dehumanize me, and genocide me. Please follow the links to view that presentation. Also June 10th, I received a reply from unethical lawyer and fake investigator Stephen Goan on June 10th. The reply indicates that false findings, the reply indicates the false findings that I expect Mr. Goan to make by completely ignoring and erasing my evidence. So basically, he kind of told me what he was going to be finding, okay, in that email. So you can go look at it. In the end, neither St. Paul University nor Mr. Goan provided any findings to me whatsoever, as you will see later in a later entry in this information package. To view Mr. Goan's response of June 10th, you can use the links below. And on June 10th, I also replied to Mr. Goan's correspondence linked above. And to see my reply, you can go to the next link. A lot of those videos are really short. They're just showing you, like just giving you opportunity to read these replies and that. Some of them were longer, like, you know, when I'm presenting my evidence against the academic fraud and all that, like those ones are longer. On July 4th, 2025, I wrote to the members of the Senate of St. Paul University to ensure that they were notified that my appeals, whoops, I went back by accident. We're going to June 25th. I posted an updated timeline for those following the racist pile-on. Please use the links below to view that timeline. So it's just a timeline of events, you know, so that you can sort of see how it flowed. You know, a lot of a lot of insights about what, you know, if it's confusing, a lot of insights can be clarified by looking at such a timeline, you know. Okay, July 3rd, I wrote to Mr. Goan to bring his attention to additional concerns. Despite collecting $2,650 in tuition for the spring 2025 semester, that's what they call the summer semester. It starts in spring, so they call it spring. There are 3 academic semesters in grad school, for those who don't know. No one from St. Paul University communicated with me regarding what is required to meet the requirements of the semester, as I mentioned earlier. I asked Mr. Goan to add this evidence of continued discrimination, retaliation, and maliciousness to his investigation. I also asked Mr. Goan for an explanation for the delay in my receiving his investigative report, but that doesn't exist in my view. I never did receive Mr. Goan's report, and there is no evidence that Mr. Goan produced any report to this very day. Please use the links below to read my correspondence dated July 3rd. On July 4th, 2025, I discovered that Jamel Stambouli, who had been on sabbatical for the 2024 to 2025 academic semester, had been named the new Dean of the Faculty of Philosophy and Human Sciences. I also viewed updated information about the new Vice Dean, Buma Maisha, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, the new Director of the School of Social Innovation, Julie Paquette, and various coordinator positions in the Department of Social Innovation. Aurélie Lacassan resigned from her position of rectrice at Université de Hearst in July 2025. And at the time that I wrote this, her status at St. Paul was unknown to me. I think she's teaching there. I don't know what other roles she may be in. I haven't looked in a while, like I said, but I definitely will before my back to school protest. Please use the links below to view that information that I recorded on July 4th, 2025. Another link. July 7th, I received a response from unethical lawyer and fake investigator Stephen Goan to my correspondence of July 3rd. Mr. Goan stated that the matter of the Social Innovation Department collecting tuition for the spring 2025 semester and then refusing to communicate to me about what is expected to meet the requirements of the semester is outside of his investigation mandate. So to view that correspondence, you can go to that link. Okay, so then on July 7th, I wrote to the new Dean of the Faculty, the new Vice Dean, and the new Director of the Department. And all of those administrative positions, they rotate like musical chairs. They started that, like I noticed that during my master's, and that's going on around all the universities. And I don't know, like I've said many times in my videos, I don't know exactly why they do that, but I think it's just like, so like everybody gets a turn because everybody has to guzzle the indignities, right? And everybody has to administer the genocide, right? And sometimes onto their own people in the case of like First Nations administrators that are doing this to First Nation students, for example. And so then I think that's why it's musical chairs, like everybody gets a turn. And like there is no way to have one of these fake jobs and avoid having to administer that harm. They make sure that you have to administer the harm as well and you take your turn. So I wrote to them regarding the lack of communication about what is expected to meet the requirements of the spring 2025 semester and the ongoing racism, dehumanization, erasure, and exclusion for my PhD program at St. Paul University. These people are Dr. Jamel Stambouli, Dr. Buma Maisha, and Dr. Julie Paquette. So you can, there's them. You can go see that evidence that I put up there for Canadians who are interested. July 17th. I issued a press release announcing my peaceful protest at St. Paul University. Please view the link. So that's an old press release. I've put out millions. The media have never contacted me, and the media is fake. On July 18th, that's the point. That's why I continue to make press releases, is to show and to, to demonstrate to First Nations youth, the media is fake, okay? They go to the fake news events, not the real news events, you see? So on July 18th, 2025, I wrote to Stephen Goan, who runs a scam called Alternative Dispute Resolution. And everybody who's studying conflict studies and trying to get into that scam, I mean, you really should reconsider. Because it's nothing but administration of BS and harm. And people die. Do you understand? You're murderers and genociders. That's the plan for your life? Pathetic. So I wrote to them to demand an immediate cessation of delays and an associated exacerbation of harms, and the immediate release of his investigation report. Please use the links to view that correspondence, like one of the many times that I asked for that report thousands of years ago. July 24th, 2025, I was notified that unspecified findings were made against me and that I am removed from participation in my PhD program effective immediately. So basically, as I've told you, their findings are that a complaint that I never made is not founded, and that a complaint that is unknown to me, made by others against me, is founded. So obviously that's not okay, obviously that's not ethical, and obviously that's not legal either. St. Paul also issued a trespass notice in an attempt to interfere with my right to peaceful protest and to silence my self-advocacy. Stephen Goan's fake report of his fake independent investigation was not attached, and there is no evidence that Gaon investigated or that he produced a report, anyway, to this very day. So, I mean, there's evidence that there was an investigation, but it's fake and it's botched and it's half-assed and it's not real. And the report very well may not exist at all. So please use the links below to review that information. So another link. On July 25th, 2025, I issued a statement regarding the fake investigation and fake findings that I cautioned people to avoid making defamatory statements. Yeah, so on July 25th, I cautioned people to avoid making defamatory statements against me without any, because there's no evidence. To say that I harassed someone, there's no evidence of that. So I caution people not to defame me, right? Because some people understand what defamation means. Not Heather Eaton, but some people do, okay? So if you say something about someone that isn't true, that's defamation. If you say something about somebody that is true, that's not defamation, and they would have to prove that it isn't true. Should you have evidence of anyone making such false and defamatory statements, please contact me at dl_hickey@danahickey.com. Anyone who informs me of false and defamatory statements made against me who wishes to remain anonymous will receive my guarantee in writing if requested to safeguard their identity, to protect them from retaliation by St. Paul, a fake university and dangerous cult. Please view the links to see my statement of July 25th. August 1st, on August 1st, 2025, I published my first information package for Canadians interested in my protest at St. Paul University and at Stephen Goan's office just down the street from here. So please use the link to review that info package. So that's there. August 27th, I was notified by Detective Albert Stewart of the Ottawa Police Service of a complaint of criminal harassment filed against me by unethical lawyer and fake investigator Stephen Gaon. There is ample evidence that I am fully opposed to violence, and there is no evidence that I'm a risk to anyone's safety. Albert Stewart of the Ottawa Police Service ignored that evidence and threatened me with a charge of criminal harassment to re-erase an MMIWG survivor and erase my self-advocacy and erase my peaceful protest outside Stephen Gaon's office in Centretown, Ottawa, which does not meet the standard of criminal harassment in the criminal code by any stretch of the imagination. To view my documentation of that event, you can go to the next link. Thank you for taking the time, and that is really it for my
It's a survivor. What did you survive?
What's up, buddy?
What did you survive?
I'm an MMIWG survivor. Do you know what that means?
No.
It means missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls.
But you're here.
That's right.
So how are you a survivor?
Well, I'm alive, aren't I? I'm not dead. I'm not dead.
You were kidnapped or something.
That's right, I was. And I was confined for an unnumbered number of days, and I was raped and tortured and beaten and bitten
Oh my God.
and drugged.
That's crazy.
I know.
Who did that? Was it Stephen Goon?
No. So,
Is that
but
how you say his name, Stephen Goon?
I think it's Goan, I'm not sure. But he knows about those circumstances, and he re-erased me. So I'm an erased survivor. Survivors are erased in Canada. Survivors of Indian residential schools, survivors of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. And in an academic article I wrote, I also include survivors of sexual abuse survivors of the Catholic Church, And I put all three of those together because all of those people are erased, and it's systemic and well documented, and it's an ontological assault on our existence.
Exactly.
They're trying to kill us. So I wrote an article about that.
Indigenous people.
Yeah, I'm a researcher and a writer.
Yeah.
And so that's what I wrote about in my academic article.
So what is alternative dispute resolution?
So that's Stephen Goan's fake company where he takes money to administer these harms onto others.
Oh. Wait, what? Like,
It's his company, so it's like they pretend to do conflict resolution, but their real jobs are administering these harms onto Canadians. It's a scam, as my sign says.
So what do you
It's a
do?
scam.
What do they do? Is it like that thing where they ask you to resolve the disputes?
Yeah. So it's an alternative dispute resolution
private
process, but it's totally fake. And so at the university that hired him, they also teach conflict studies, and they're training people on how to conduct these fake investigations and administer these harms onto people, and people die as a result of these harms.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
So those are the reasons that I'm protesting today.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what do you do? Are you like a delivery guy?
Yeah, I'm done for the day.
Oh,
I
yeah.
thought you were someone actually, but never mind.
All right. Well, thanks for your interest.
Yeah. Hey, support to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a very sick name to have. Stephen Goan.
He's a goon indeed.
He's a gooner. Okay. Well, have a good day.
Okay, thank you, buddy. Okay, so that was an interested Canadian, I guess. I wasn't sure if he was here to like antagonize me or give me a hard time or what. And so that's just a little demo of how I handle those situations. I'm all out of ice cap. It is now 2:30, and so then I'll probably be here for at least an hour, maybe more. We'll see how it goes. It's not all that hot actually. There is some maybe cloud cover, and so the sun's not like beating right down on me. It's not too bad. Sometimes it's like kind of brutal, and so that's why I pack it up. There's no shade here where I'm at. Again, I'm at the Human Rights Monument on Elgin Street in Ottawa, very near to the courthouse, which is over there. And a lot of Stephen Goan's chums and colleagues, including cops and lawyers, are in this area. And some of them today, I think some of them have caught on, and like there's regular Canadians kind of going by and like, you know, smiling, giving me a wave, hands, like thumbs up, whatever. And there's also lawyers. I mean, they're dressed like lawyers. Also my chums from the Freedom Convoy and the Freedom Fighters, they're over there today. Usually you can find them over at Parliament Hill. So it's nice to have them nearby, and I'll probably go visit them on my way home. That's really it for today. And then I hope for my next protest that I'll have some, like the article that I wrote, again, was tailored to pass a course, which I did. I got a good grade on that. And the person who graded that work, it has not been named in this process. I'm not saying that he's not implicated. I'm just saying I have no reason to name him or accuse him of anything, and so I haven't. You know, I could show you the email that he sent me. Like I said, I got a good grade, and he said that it was very well done, this kind of thing. But again, I wrote it to pass that course, and I do want to edit it before I publish it. Before I self-publish it, and so that work isn't completed yet, and I'm sorry for the delay. But I think that, you know, going through my information package is a worthwhile activity, and so then it gives me the opportunity to do that. And so now that that's done, this is a long video, and we'll conclude there. So thanks again everybody for watching, and tune in again next time. Bye.